Okay, so let's dig into this. Usually when we sit down to do one of these deep dives, there's a familiar ritual. We're metaphorically, sometimes literally, thumping a heavy book onto the table. You know the drill. It's got a dust jacket, maybe a glossy photo on the front.
A barcode.
A barcode, a price tag, a list of credentials on the back, flap, all the signal.
All the trappings of authority, the things that are designed to tell your brain, this is safe. This has been vetted. You can trust this.
Exactly. It's part of the established system. But today is very different. We are not looking at a book in that traditional sense at all. We're looking at a digital artifact.
That is really the perfect word for it. It's an artifact. But it's not just a book. It's a thing from a specific time and a specific digital place. It's a PDF file.
Specifically, it's a file titled Photographic Evidence of an Alternative History. And I really want you to just picture this in your mind for a second. It doesn't have a publisher's logo. No. It doesn't have an ISBN number. It doesn't have a copyright date in any way you'd recognize. It feels, honestly, it feels like something you would have found on a USB drive that was just left on a park bench in, 2008.
Or downloaded from a very obscure message board at 3 a.m. It has that texture to it. You know that specific Wild West internet texture before everything was polished and algorithmic and, corporate? This feels like raw data, like somebody's personal research folder that just escaped into the wild.
And that raw quality is the entire hook, because the premise of this document, it isn't just, here are some spooky pictures for you to look at.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It is a claim for the complete dismantling of the historical narrative we're all taught. And it's presented by an author who is, for all intents and purposes, a ghost.
Compiled by Anonymous. That's what it says right there on the digital cover page.
And usually, when you see anonymous, you kind of roll your eyes. You immediately think, okay, this is someone in a basement with way too much time on their hands.
A troll or someone just trying to stir things up.
Right. But as we dug into this document, into its metadata, its forwards, this isn't just a random troll. This is a time capsule. It was compiled specifically in 2008, and then it was released out into the world in 2011.
That 3-year gap is interesting.
It is. And the context, the specific, very unusual worldview of this anonymous author is absolutely fascinating. And I think it changes everything about how you have to interpret the images that come later.
It really does, because before we even get to the dinosaurs or the giants, and believe me, we will get to them in part 2, we have to understand the lens. It's like if you wear red glasses, the whole world looks red. This author is wearing a very specific, and I have to say, a very strange pair of glasses.
So let's start with the container itself, the actual visual language of this PDF. We open it up, and right at the front, there is a note about the formatting.
Right. Let me just pull that up here. The author writes, and I'm reading this exactly as it appears in the file, I have tried to keep this book close to 50% images and 50% text.
Which is a very high ratio for any kind of serious text.
It is. It's basically a picture book for adults.
Yeah.
But then they immediately drop this admission right after they say the text was not written by myself, but extracted from the sources mentioned and then edited by myself.
Okay, so let's just pause on that for a second. They are telling you right up front, I am not a writer.
I am a curator.
I am a collage
artist.
Or a DJ, maybe. They are taking snippets from old encyclopedias, from 19th century journals, maybe from other websites, we don't know, and they're pasting them right next to these provocative images. It's almost like a scrapbook.
It's a dossier. It really feels like someone was collecting evidence for a court case that was never going to happen. And there's another formatting choice in here that I think is brilliant in a very manipulative kind of way.
You're talking about the table of contents.
The lack of a table of contents.
Yeah, there is no table of contents. None. And the author explicitly says the chapter structure is not standard and no table of contents exists. This was done deliberately.
Deliberately? Now, why would you do that? Why make it harder for the reader to navigate your work?
Well, just think about how we consume information now. How you consume information. If I give you a 100-page PDF, what is the first thing you do?
Scan the headers. I look for keywords that jump out at me.
You look for the good parts. Oh, I don't really care about, ancient pottery. Let me just skip ahead to the section on aliens.
Exactly. You cherry pick. You curate your own experience based on what you already believe or what you're already interested in. You're in control.
But by removing the map, by taking away the table of contents, the author forces you to walk the path they laid out.
You have to drift. You just have to scroll page by page. You are strapped into the roller coaster, and you cannot get off until the ride is over.
It's a forced linear narrative. They are essentially saying you can't possibly understand the UFOs on page 80 if you haven't first seen the giant skulls on page 20. They are building a cumulative argument, brick by brick.
It reminds me of those old, long-form conspiracy documentaries from that same era. You know, the ones like Zeitgeist or Loose Change. You couldn't just skip to the end and get the conclusion. You had to sit there for 2 hours and let them layer the evidence one piece at a time until this whole wall was built up around you.
It is overwhelming by design. The sheer volume of these images, just one after another, it creates this feeling of weight. This feeling of, look at all this stuff. I mean, it can't all be fake, can it?
That's the classic. Where there's smoke, there's fire fallacy, but kind of weaponized for the digital age.
So, okay, we have the structure. We have this linear, image-heavy scrapbook dossier thing. But now we have to talk about the architect, the compiler, because this is where the story goes from just weird internet file to absolutely esoteric.
This is what you're calling the shadow of the alchemist.
Yeah.
So in the 2011 foreword, the one added later, the author explains why this thing sat on a hard drive for 3 full years. They write, and I'm quoting, "This book has been sitting unpublished on my computer for 3 years. I wrote it in 2008, at the time when I had just finished decoding the alchemical formula." I love how casually that is dropped in there. Oh yeah, I had just finished decoding the alchemical formula. You know, like they just finished painting the garage or doing their taxes.
Right. And just to be crystal clear for you listening, when they say alchemical formula, they are not using that as a metaphor for like spiritual growth.
No.
They aren't talking about Jungian psychology or self-improvement.
No, they are talking about the Philosopher's Stone.
The actual literal Philosopher's Stone, the one that turns lead into gold, the elixir of life, physical immortality. The author continues, they say, "In my obsessive search for true secrets and real mysteries, I found many things, by far the most important and interesting being the reality of the existence of the Philosopher's Stone." And they link to their other work. They actually drop a URL to something called the Book of Aquarius.
Which is the manual. It's the cookbook for making the Philosopher's Stone.
And the URL they provide, it just anchors this so perfectly in its time. It's bookofaquarius.forgottenbooks.org.
Forgotten books. I mean, you can't make it up. It's so poetic. It just leans right into this whole idea of uncovering lost knowledge that the establishment wants to keep hidden.
But let's really think about the implications of this for a second. We're not dealing with a standard ancient aliens theorist here. We aren't dealing with a flat earther, not necessarily. We are dealing with a hermeticist, a practicing alchemist in their own mind. And that changes the lens completely because think about it from their perspective. If you genuinely believe, 100% believe, that you have discovered the secret to eternal life and the transmutation of matter, then modern science is broken.
Fundamentally broken. Not just, oh, they got a date wrong on a piece of pottery. It means the foundational understanding of chemistry, of physics, of biology that we are all taught in school is completely and utterly false.
And once you pull on that single thread, once you decide that the entire scientific establishment has somehow missed the biggest secret in the universe, then the whole sweater just unravels.
If they are so fundamentally wrong about the nature of matter, then why on earth should I trust them about the age of the earth? Why should I trust what they say about the origin of species? Why should I trust them about anything?
It creates a total systemic rejection of all institutional authority. And this PDF, this photographic evidence, is the fallout from that rejection. The author even says this whole book was just intended as a precursor to their main work, the Book of Aquarius.
It's a side project. That's what gets me. This isn't even their magnum opus.
No.
The magnum opus is the immortality serum. This is just the extra stuff they found while they were researching the actual secrets of the universe.
It's the scraps. It's the deleted scenes from the real story of the cosmos.
But that framing, in a strange way, it gives it a kind of authority, doesn't it? It feels like the author's saying, look, I have bigger fish to fry here. I'm busy making gold. But here, you can take this folder of history lies. I figured it all out. You should too.
It frames the author as someone who has already ascended. They are looking down at the rest of us, stuck in the matrix, and they're just dropping us a little red pill.
And the way they offer that pill is very specific. It's not aggressive at all. It's philosophical.
Which brings us to the 2008 foreword. This is the text that was written when they were deep in the research phase before the 3-year gap. And it doesn't start with screaming or accusations. It starts with a very gentle invitation.
This book is not a book of answers. It is a book of questions.
That is a very, very seductive opening line. And they followed up immediately with this. Now is not the time for answers. as an answer is useless if you do not understand the question. An answer is useless if you do not understand the question. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's just solid philosophy right there.
It's Socratic. It's what any good teacher would say.
It is, and what it does is it completely disarms you. If someone runs up to you on the street and screams, "The government is hiding giants in Antarctica,"
Right.
your defense mechanisms immediately go up. You categorize them as crazy and you walk away.
Right. Your walls go up.
But if someone comes up to you and asks quietly, "Hey, why do you trust the history books you were given in school? Who actually wrote them? How do you know they're true?"
You pause. You have to engage with that. It flatters your intelligence. It treats you like a peer, like a fellow investigator, not just a receptacle for their beliefs.
And then, after that gentle opening, they hit you with that list of questions in the foreword. It's not one question, it's a barrage. Who do you trust? Why do you trust them? How do you tell the truth from what is not true? What is history? How do you know?
How do you know? That right there, that is the wedge. Yeah. That is the crowbar that they are trying to jam into the little crack in your certainty. Because for 99.9% of history, we don't know from personal experience. We weren't there.
We know because a teacher told us, or a textbook told us, or we saw a documentary on the BBC or PBS that told us.
We are relying on authority. We're relying on a long chain of trust. And what this author is doing is very gently and very methodically trying to break every single link in that chain.
And once the chain is broken, once you get the reader to admit, okay, yeah, I guess I don't know for sure, then they're ready to start pouring their alternative facts into that new void.
It's a classic deprogramming technique, really. You have to destabilize the existing foundation before you can build a new house on top of it. But they frame it as an adventure. That's the key here. It's not presented as something terrifying. It's exciting. They actually write, a question without an answer leads to a quest. Adventure, a broadening of the mind. They turn skepticism not into paranoia, but into a hero's journey. You're not just a conspiracy theorist sitting in your basement. You are Indiana Jones. You are discovering the lost ark of history.
And honestly, that is a very appealing narrative. Who doesn't want to be the one who knows the secret truth? Who doesn't want to feel like they're the one who can see what everyone else is missing?
It appeals directly to our ego. The quest for truth feels much more satisfying and noble than just, reading a Wikipedia page and accepting it.
So we have the alchemist, we have the philosopher. Now, I want to pivot to the curator, the person who actually assembled all these images, because there's a section in our analysis here on the ethics of this document, or maybe the lack thereof.
Ah, yes, the Robin Hood of JPEGs.
Exactly. In the notes on formatting, the author addresses the issue of copyright. And usually, this is the boring part of any book. All rights reserved, blah, blah, blah. No part of this may be reproduced. Not here. Not even close. This author writes, flat out, I did not seek permission to use the images and text contained in the book. A full confession, straight up. I stole this material.
But listen to the justification. This is pure gold. The reason for this being that this book is important, closer to the truth, which I feel is more noble than respecting copyright and fair use laws, which are for the purpose of making money.
Truth is more noble than copyright.
It's a manifesto. It's the old hacker ethic from the 90s. Information wants to be free, man.
They are framing the laws of commerce and intellectual property as these petty earthly shackles that simply don't apply to the truth with a capital T.
And then they add this disclaimer, which is key. It should be known that I will make no money from this book as I am publishing it anonymously.
Which, I have to be fair, that does work on me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
It does, really.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If this person was selling this PDF for $29.99 on some website, I'd immediately say, okay, you're a grifter. You're just stealing photos to make a quick buck. But because it's free, because they are anonymous and gain no fame or fortune from it, it feels altruistic.
It feels like an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
I am breaking the law, but I'm doing it to bring you the fire from the gods.
It reinforces that entire forbidden knowledge vibe. They don't want you to see this. And the law even says, I shouldn't show you, but I'm going to do it anyway because you, the reader, you deserve to know.
But then, and this is honestly my favorite part of all the metadata in this document, the mask slips just a little bit. We get this perfect glimpse of the author's, humanity.
The fakes chapter.
The chapter that never was. So in the original 2008 notes, the author writes something very professional sounding. They say, I have checked all images for fraud. Images found to be fraudulent have been included in the final chapter under the heading fakes, which sounds very rigorous. It sounds academic. I am vetting the evidence for you. I'm not just throwing everything at the wall. I am a scientist.
Right. It builds credibility. But then there is an editorial note that was added 3 years later in 2011, right before they released it.
I never got around to writing the fakes chapter.
I never got around to it. And then as an aside, they just add, but pretty much any photo of a corpse turned out to be fake, created by a prank-playing taxidermist or Photoshop fiend. I love that so much. It's so honest and so relatable.
It is. It's like, I had this grand plan to debunk all the frauds for you, but then I got really busy decoding the secrets of the universe, so... Just, take my word for it. The dead bodies are probably fake.
It just humanizes the whole project. It reminds you that Anonymous isn't some shadowy organization or a Russian psyop. It's just a person who procrastinates, a person who has these huge, ambitious ideas and then gets distracted by their main project.
But here's a question for you. Does that admission make you trust them more or less?
Weirdly, I think more.
Why?
Because... they admitted it. They could have just deleted the whole reference to the fakes chapter. It would have been easy. They could have just pretended they never planned to do it in the first place. But they left the note in. They left the admission of their own laziness.
It feels authentic. It doesn't feel like a polished piece of propaganda.
And also, the admission that fakes exist is really important.
That's a good point.
A lot of true believers in these communities will defend everything. If you show them a blurry photo of Bigfoot that is clearly a guy in a gorilla suit, they will fight you to the death on it.
Right. You'll say, no, that's a trans-dimensional suit that just happens to look like a cheap costume.
Exactly. But this author is saying, no, look, there are pranksters out there. There are taxidermists. There are Photoshop fiends. They are acknowledging that there is noise in the signal.
Which implies that whatever they kept in the book, whatever they didn't discard, must be the signal.
I already filtered this for you. I'm smart enough to spot a taxidermy hoax, so if I included this picture of a giant skull, it must be because it passed my filter.
It's a huge trust me bro moment, but it's a weirdly charming one.
Yeah.
It establishes them as a discerning curator, even if they were ultimately too lazy to show their work.
So the big question is, what did they actually keep? What passed this alchemist's filter?
And this brings us to what you've called the 4 pillars.
The unintentional categories.
All right.
In the foreword, the author makes a very specific claim. They claim they didn't set out with an agenda. They write, I started with no ancient dinosaurs or crop circles, but the photos were there. The photos were there. I love that phrasing. Like they just tripped over them in the street. Like this is all just an accident.
They claim the evidence just naturally grouped itself into 4 distinct categories.
So let's just list them out because the combination is... it's a very specific cocktail of weirdness. Okay, so category 1, modern dinosaurs. We're talking dragons, the Loch Ness Monster, pterodactyls in Civil War photos, that kind of thing.
Superhuman skulls. So giants, cone heads, elongated craniums from Peru and elsewhere.
Flying machines, which covers everything from UFOs in ancient art to like little golden airplanes from Incan tombs. And then category 4, which is almost mentioned as an afterthought, but it's clearly part of their worldview, crop circles.
Now, if you went to a university library...
which we've already established we are definitely not doing right now.
Right, but if you did, you would find dinosaurs in the paleontology section. You would find skulls in anthropology or archaeology. You'd find flying machines in, engineering? Or maybe science fiction studies.
And you would find crop circles in the book about rural pranks from the 1980s.
They're totally different disciplines. They have nothing to do with each other. But here, in this document, they are all crammed together in the same PDF. Why?
Because in the alternative history worldview, the category isn't biology or technology or art history. The single unifying category is anomalies.
Things that don't fit the official story. Exactly. The unifying theory is simply things the establishment is lying to you about. It's the island of misfit toys for historical evidence.
And once you decide that the mainstream narrative is fundamentally a lie, then a dinosaur allegedly living in the Congo and a spaceship allegedly appearing in a Renaissance painting are effectively the same piece of evidence. They're both just glitches in the matrix.
They are both just another piece of proof that they, whoever they are hiding the truth from us.
And the author framing this whole discovery process as unintentional is really clever psychology. They aren't coming to you and saying, hey, I have a wacky theory about ancient aliens and living dinosaurs. They are saying, I just collected the data and you'll never believe this, but look, a pattern emerged all on its own.
It appeals to that pattern recognition part of our brain. We are wired to find connections. We love it.
Even if the only real connection is just, these are all weird things that ended up on the internet.
Especially then. feels like you're the one discovering the pattern, not just being told it exists.
Now, before we wrap up this first part and actually, open the file and look at the images, which we promise we will do in the next episode, I want to talk about the medium itself one last time, the psychology of photographic evidence.
Why the PDF format itself works so well for this kind of thing.
We've talked about the gritty, raw aesthetic, but let's look at the sources they cite.
Oh, I noticed this too. This was fascinating. They aren't citing conspiracyweekly.com or some YouTube channel.
No, they're citing sources like the Edinburgh New Philosophical Journal, 1861, or the World Book Encyclopedia, 1973, or a book by someone named Knox Wilson.
They are citing mainstream sources, but they are almost all old mainstream sources, from before, say, 1980.
Why do you think that is? Why rely on an encyclopedia from 1973 when you could use one from 2008?
I think it taps into a very specific kind of nostalgia that exists in this whole alternative community. It's the idea that the past was somehow purer, that the information was less corrupted.
Purer in what way?
It's like an explorer writing in his journal in 1860. He wasn't part of the globalist cabal yet. He wasn't worried about his government grant or his university tenure. He was just a guy with a notebook and a pith helmet, writing down what he saw. There's a perceived innocence there.
So if he writes down, "Today our party unearthed the skeleton of a man who was 15 feet tall," we're supposed to believe him because he's a raw, unfiltered witness.
Right. He's treated as raw data.
Yeah.
Whereas a scientist today who says that's impossible is seen as being indoctrinated by the system. They're compromised.
So the author uses these old, often out-of-print sources to effectively say, look, even your books used to admit this stuff was real. This was common knowledge before the great censorship kicked in.
Right there in the library the whole time, you all just stopped looking. It's a very powerful idea.
It really is. And it makes the reader feel like they're doing real archival research. It validates that investigator fantasy we were talking about. You're not just scrolling a PDF, you're blowing the dust off of forgotten truth.
And that brings us right back around to the central invitation of the whole document, the quest.
The author presents, figure X on the screen and simply asks, what do you see?
They don't lecture you, they just point.
And that is so much more effective and maybe more dangerous. Because if I look at a blurry picture of a rock formation and I am the one who decides it looks like a dinosaur skull, then I own that discovery. It's mine.
You convinced yourself. And nobody can argue you out of a conclusion that you reached on your own.
Seeing is believing, right? Even if what you were seeing is just pareidolia.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a trick of the light or a low-resolution JPEG.
But is it? Is that all it is?
And that is the cliffhanger.
That is the central question, isn't it?
We have spent this whole time just walking around the perimeter of this strange digital artifact. We've established the context. We know the author is, in their own mind, an alchemist. We know they see themselves as a kind of Robin Hood figure liberating truth. We know they believe mainstream history is a complete lie.
We've checked the structural integrity of the roller coaster. We've read all the warning labels.
Now we have to actually get on the ride.
In part 2, we are going to open the file. We're going to go page by page, figure by figure. We are going to look at the alleged stegosaurus on the Cambodian temple wall. We are going to look at the skulls that seem to have horns. We are going to look at the medieval tapestries that seem to show spaceships. And for each one, we are going to ask, is this a hoax? Is it just our brains playing tricks on us? Or is it something else? Is it an uncomfortable truth? I honestly can't wait to get into it.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to just sort of chew on before we get to the next part. The author said, an answer is useless if you do not understand the question.
Right, so here's a question for you. We trust history books because we assume someone, somewhere, checked the facts. We assume the system of peer review and scholarship works. But what if you were standing in a museum or at an ancient site and you saw a carving, a physical object in front of your eyes that directly contradicted what was written in the book? Which one would you trust? The physical evidence or the official story?
The evidence or the story. Because this entire document, this entire project by this anonymous alchemist is betting everything that you will choose the evidence.
I'll find out if they're right.
Join us for part 2 of Image-Driven Investigation. We're going to look at the pictures,